Hey, I'm Albee Swenson. Chapter 3 of Ladies of Legacy brings us to Deborah. This account, at least initially, gives us more questions than answers. How did Deborah come to be judge? Did she have any children? We're told that she had a husband. Where was her husband and how was he serving as she had this leadership role? Was the palm of Deborah, capital P, an actual palm, or was it a building where Deborah held court? Well, if God didn't tell us, then apparently it wasn't what he wanted us to concentrate when we read this account in the Bible. So what did he want us to look at? Right now I'm going to ask you, how much do you trust God? How big is your trust? During the last few months, I've come face to face with this issue in many areas of my life. And what I've decided is, it's easy to trust when we don't need to trust. Right now, I have a 14 and a 16-year-old this summer. And while I'd like to keep them safe at home, bubble wrapped, my friends are telling me it's time to let them go. My daughter will be getting her driver's license soon, and my son likes to take bike rides with friends. My daughter likes to go jogging. So I guess this is the phase of life that we're in, where Mama has to learn to worry less and let go and place them in God's hands. In the last couple of months, my husband and I have taken 2 loans out at a time when my job is questionable. Any day now, I can find I'm without work. Do I trust that God led us to the decisions that we made when we were praying about these issues? Do I trust that we're going to have the money that we need to pay the bills each month? If you've ever been in a horrific storm or had to walk through a dark alley, if you've ever been in an airplane that had to make an emergency landing, or been in a foreign country in a predicament that didn't seem too promising, if you've ever watched as one of your children suddenly came into danger, you know that trust can all of a sudden look very different. I call these walking on water moments. They're moments that we've left the safety of the boat, and the waves are swirling around us, the wind is howling, and we have to ask ourselves, are we going to look at the wind and the waves? Are we going to look at the boat behind us? Or are we going to look at Jesus? You see, if we look at the elements, the wind and the waves, we're going to be terrified. And if we look at the boat, we're probably going to start to complain, because that looks pretty safe, much safer than being out on the water. The only place we're going to find peace is when we look to Jesus. Deborah wasn't facing financial insecurity or a disease or a situation of some sort like that. She was facing an army, and not just any army, but the army of armies in her days. 900 chariots, all reinforced with iron. The People's Bible tells us that the term used here, which was Harosheth Hagoyim, is a description which means metal forge of the foreign nations. My study Bible explains it wasn't just one people, but a coalition of people that Deborah was up against. Terrifying, isn't it? Sort of a David and Goliath case. The Israelites didn't have chariots at all, with or without iron. How on earth could they conquer a coalition of 900 iron chariots? The short answer, they didn't. God did. The same way he did when the Israelites crossed the Red Sea. See, they crossed over on dry ground because God had parted the waters. But when the Egyptians chased after them, God told the waters to go back where they were supposed to, sweeping the Egyptians away. In verse 15, we're told that Sisera abandoned the chariots. Why on earth would the enemies of Israel abandon their chariots? Well, the People's Bible reminds us that the Israelites had gathered on Mount Tabor, and their enemies were on the plain beneath them in the plain of Jezreel. See, chariots are great on flat ground, but they're pretty useless when you get up in the hills and the mountains. In the middle of this plain, there was a river, the Kishon River. It's a trickle most of the year, but when the rains come, it can become a torrent. As we read the Song of Deborah, verse 21 tells us the river Kishon swept the people away. It appears that God delivered his people in part by causing a sudden rainstorm, which carried many of the Canaanites away, and others were left fleeing without their chariots. And that's why we can trust God. Iron chariots are no match for him. Bills, disease, they're not bigger than Jesus. They're not bigger than our God. He's conquered them before, he'll conquer them again. So when you find yourself walking on water, don't look at the waves. Don't look at the wind. Don't even look back at the boat. Just keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. God bless you as you study Deborah.